Here you go. A poor man's favorite, Japanese fermented soybeans over rice. A bowl of fermented soybeans and rice was placed in front of me. Poor folks love that kind of thing, don't they? With a loud guffaw, Kevin laughed with his mouth wide open. I couldn't say a word in response. Dad, how could you say something like that? A shrill voice rang out. I turned around and saw Amanda, her face pale, trembling as she looked at me. We had thought that Kevin, her father, had come around, which is why Amanda had invited us. But it turned out we were wrong. Kevin hadn't changed his mind at all. In fact, it seemed like he still looked down on us. If he had tricked Amanda into inviting us, I could never forgive that. He needs to learn just how arrogant and conceited he really is. And I have enough connections to make that happen. I quietly stood up. My name is Tracy. I'm a 50-year-old taxi driver. My husband passed away years ago, but he left me with our beloved son, Daniel. It would be a lie to say I don't feel lonely, but right now, I'm living a happy life with just the two of us. Daniel is now 27, and he recently told me he's getting married. But marriage isn't just about two people. It's also about the families. Especially since we're a single-parent household. There's always a chance the other family might look down on us. I couldn't stop feeling anxious. Then one day, while I was dealing with those worries, Daniel came home from work and said, "Mom, are you free this Sunday?" For a taxi driver like me, weekdays and holidays don't matter much. Actually, weekends and holidays are the busiest times, since more people go out. Daniel was still in elementary school when my husband passed away. Since then, I've supported us by driving a taxi. So Daniel knows full well that I prefer to work when others are off. Is there something special going on?
Yeah.
I want you to meet my fiancé. So that's what this is about. Now his question made perfect sense. In that case, I'll make time. Are you sure? Daniel looked worried. I smiled back at him. Of course. Your marriage matters more than my job. Thanks, Mom. I'll bring her over this Sunday. I'm looking forward to it. But the truth was, I was more nervous than excited. What if they were coming not to greet me, but to break things off? Even though I knew that wasn't it, I couldn't shake the feeling. Then Sunday came. Right on time, Daniel brought his fiancée to our home. Hi, I'm Amanda. I'm dating Daniel. I heard you like these, so I brought some for you. The one who bowed with a gift in hand was a petite woman. Standing next to Daniel, she was a full head shorter. I'm Daniel's mother. Thank you for coming. Please, come in. I took the gift and led them to the living room. I stepped out briefly and headed to the kitchen. I brewed my best tea and arranged the baked goods she brought. When I returned to the living room, I saw Amanda looking quite tense. There's no need to be so nervous. We're not some fancy family or anything. Mom, don't say weird stuff. Daniel scolded, but Amanda chuckled softly. It looked like the tension had eased. The conversation flowed smoothly after that. As the mood warmed up, I decided to ask about her family. So, how is your family taking all this? What do you mean? Well, about the two of you getting married. I didn't want to bluntly ask if they were against it, so I trailed off on purpose. Amanda seemed to catch on and lowered her gaze slightly as she spoke. My father isn't very supportive. Because Daniel was raised by a single mother. Is that so? But I'll convince him, I promise. Oh, here's a photo of me and my father. She showed me a photo on her phone. It looked like it was taken at her junior college graduation. In the center was Amanda in a traditional kimono, flanked by a man and a woman around my age. This is... I started to speak, then stopped, stunned. It was because I recognized the man in the photo as Amanda's father. The story goes back about 6 months. That day, I had just dropped off a regular male customer at his office. After checking for anything left behind, I had just started to drive off. Then, suddenly, I saw a man rush out of the building. He ran straight toward my taxi. Hey! Open the door. He pounded on the window furiously. That man was Amanda's father. Since he is technically Daniel's future father-in-law, I'll refer to him as Kevin. Kevin shouted at me, clearly upset and full of urgency. Let me in. I said I'm getting in. What? Can't you even understand that? Yes. Understood. Reluctantly, I let Kevin into the taxi. He slumped into the seat with a thud and jerked his chin forward. Take me to the airport. You've got 10 minutes. 10 minutes? That's impossible. It takes at least 30 from here. Shut up. Just do what the customer says. You're a professional, aren't you? Whether amateur or pro, impossible things remain impossible. I explained politely, but Kevin wouldn't listen. Quit whining and just go already. He kicked the back of my seat with a loud thump. I had no choice but to head toward the airport. Fortunately, the roads were clear, and we arrived in just over 20 minutes. It wasn't 10 minutes, but it was still impressively fast. Even so, Kevin scowled and tapped the door with his left hand. Open the damn door already. Sir, I'll need payment for the fare. What? I said 10 minutes. How long did it take? If you want to get paid, do what the customer wants. Kevin shouted furiously. This was going nowhere. I sighed. As annoying as it was, I decided to call the office and have them contact the police. Just then, Kevin. You're late. A young man spoke to him through the window. Kevin looked at him and let out a sigh. It's her fault. I told her 10 minutes to the airport and, never mind that. Just hurry to the gate. I'll pay the fare. You don't need to. Not to some bottom-feeding woman like her. Kevin kept grumbling. But sensing something, the young man turned to me. I'll pay. Please open the door. Understood. As soon as I unlocked it, Kevin stormed out of the taxi. Even as he left, he continued to complain. In the end, the young man paid while trying to calm him down. I handed him the receipt, and the two of them left quickly. Even during the payment, Kevin wouldn't stop complaining. His arrogant behavior stuck with me, which is why the moment I saw that photo, I remembered him. As I stood there, stunned by the awful memory, Amanda looked at me with concern. Is something wrong? Oh, no. It's nothing. That's a lovely photo. Was it your graduation? I quickly changed the subject. Amanda looked puzzled, but answered, yes. From my junior college graduation. He came even though he was busy. You've got good parents. Yeah. Maybe so. Something about her response felt odd. I glanced at Daniel, and he was avoiding my eyes. There was definitely something going on, but I couldn't force them to talk. For now, shall we have lunch? It's just a simple homemade meal, but I've prepared everything. As I stood up, Amanda rose as well. I'll help you. Oh no. You're a guest, but soon I'll be family. Amanda looked straight at me. Daniel chimed in to support her. Let her help, Mom. You always said you wished you had a daughter too, right? Huh? I never said that. Don't pretend. You told me before that you wanted both a son and a daughter. I don't recall saying that, but I understood it was Daniel's way of being thoughtful. He wanted me and Amanda to bond while preparing lunch together. At least, that's how I saw it, so I decided to go along with it. All right then, I'd be glad for your help. Yes. I'll do my best. Amanda made a tiny fist pump. With her by my side, I headed to the kitchen. Here, Amanda, could you handle this? Sure. It felt like I had suddenly gained a very sweet daughter. We had grown much closer. From then on, the two of us happily prepared lunch together. Once everything was ready, Amanda spoke up, as if summoning her courage. It's always been my dream to cook with my mom like this. Oh. Really? Yes. She never really cooks. The way she said she caught my attention. Amanda seemed to notice too and quickly covered her mouth. Is there something going on? I wasn't trying to push her. But if she truly saw me as a mother, I hoped she would open up. That's all I wanted. Maybe she sensed that because Amanda began to talk. My real parents passed away a long time ago when I was very little. According to her, the parents she lives with now are actually her uncle and aunt. After her birth parents died, they took her in and raised her. That's why Amanda couldn't understand why they would oppose her marriage to Daniel over something like a single mother household. As she spoke with a sad expression, I gently pulled her into a hug. You don't need to look so down. I'm sure they'll understand eventually. But after my father rejected the idea of our marriage, it turns out Amanda consulted other relatives. She wanted advice, some way to convince her parents. But no one had a good idea. Worse, she began hearing unpleasant things about her parents. Some say they only took me in for the money. Her birth parents had died in an accident, and the insurance payout had come to her. But since she was a child, someone needed to act as her guardian. The insurance payout would be held by the new guardian and used for her benefit. That makes sense, doesn't it? That's how the arrangement was settled. But no matter how much money you have, raising a child is never easy. It took a long time before anyone agreed to take Amanda in. Then, her current parents finally came forward. I'll take her. We don't have kids, and we've got plenty of room. We're not like those poor relatives, after all. Their tone was condescending, but the rest of the family reluctantly agreed. So, how much is the insurance money? Well, she's still a child, so raising her will take money, you know. Apparently, those were the last things they said. Of course, this might not be the full truth. They didn't explicitly say they were after the money. It could have simply been a practical question. Still, relatives who were there said it felt like they only took her in for financial reasons. Amanda, have you ever felt like you were lacking anything? Not at all. I got birthday presents, and they even sent me to junior college. Then I'd say they do care about you. If they were only after the money, they wouldn't have done all that. I gently patted her head, and a smile returned to her face. Do you really think so? I do. Now come on, let's eat. Okay. I pulled her into another hug. Later, Amanda and I returned to the living room and had lunch with Daniel, just the three of us. It felt just like being a real family, something I now treasure as a fond memory. As we were leaving, Amanda turned to us and said, I'd like us to meet again soon with both families together, as a formal introduction. Yeah. That sounds good. When should we do it? I'll ask when I get home. From the look on her smiling face, she seemed to have made peace with everything. Let me know right away, Amanda. I'll take the day off, no matter what. Okay. Daniel looked surprised at our exchange. He whispered to Amanda, when did you two get so close? That's a secret. Amanda laughed as she stepped out of the house. Daniel tilted his head and followed her. Once they were gone, the house felt oddly quiet. So this is what it's going to be like soon. Well then, I guess I'd better clean up. I pulled myself together and headed for the kitchen. 3 weeks had passed since Amanda's visit. She messaged Daniel. She had set the date for the formal meeting between our families. It's this coming Sunday. Will that work for you, Mom? If it's for Amanda, I'll make it work. It's not just for Amanda. It's for me too. Never mind. Daniel looked exasperated. I burst into laughter. Back then, at least. Time flew, and Sunday arrived before we knew it. I wore a suit, something I rarely did. I'd even practiced makeup for this day. Standing at the front door, I gave myself a little pep talk. All right. Let's do this, Daniel. You're way too fired up. Can you blame me? It's a big day. We got into my colleague's taxi and headed to Amanda's house. Perhaps because Daniel had contacted her, Amanda was waiting in front of the house. Thanks for waiting, Amanda. No, thank you for coming all this way. Please, come in. Amanda led us inside. We were taken to a room, where her parents were already waiting. After exchanging greetings, we sat in the seats they had prepared. Daniel handed them a gift, and Amanda's mother excused herself to prepare the meal. That's when Amanda's father suddenly spoke. Amanda, could you and Daniel go buy some drinks? What? Why? I just forgot in all the nerves. It slipped my mind. He laughed awkwardly. Something about it felt off. But Amanda didn't seem to notice. She stood up and left with Daniel. As soon as they were gone, Kevin gave a sly grin. I tensed up, but he started with a seemingly normal comment. I heard you raised your son while working. Yes, that's right. That must have been tough. It was hard enough for us, and there were 2 of us. I brushed it off with a polite smile. Kevin kept talking. Being a taxi driver must be rough. Such a low-status job, isn't it? Not really. If you want, I can help you find something better. Kevin was grinning the whole time. Was he being rude or just pretending to be helpful? Most likely the former, but I simply kept my responses vague. About 10 minutes passed like that. Suddenly, Amanda's mother returned. Sorry to keep you waiting. The food is finally ready. Should I help you? No, it's fine. It's just catered boxed meals. Amanda's mother showed me the boxed meals she had brought. They were catered from a high-end restaurant I'd seen featured in the media. She slowly began placing them on the table. But there weren't enough meals. There were only 3, placed in front of the seats of Amanda and her parents. We'll bring yours out in a moment. All right. Thank you. I was wondering where ours were, and apparently, it showed on my face. But then I was stunned by what she brought out. Here you go. A poor man's special, Japanese fermented soybeans over rice. A bowl of fermented beans rice was placed in front of us. Poor folks love that kind of thing, don't they? Kevin let out a loud, boisterous laugh. I couldn't say a single word in response. Dad, how could you say something like that? A sharp voice cut through the tension. I turned to see Amanda, her face pale, trembling as she looked at me. We had believed Kevin had finally been persuaded. That's why Daniel and I came here at her invitation. But it turned out we were wrong. Kevin hadn't changed his opinion at all. In fact, it seemed he still looked down on us, just as before. If he had deceived Amanda to lure us here, that was absolutely unforgivable. He needed to be shown just how arrogant and self-important he really was. I had enough connections to make something like that happen myself. I quietly stood up from my seat. Please, just a little longer, Amanda said, stopping me. She seemed to have something in mind. All right. Reluctantly, I sat back down. Amanda stayed standing and turned to Kevin. What is the meaning of this? What do you mean? Meaning of what? Kevin avoided her gaze. Amanda pressed on without hesitation. Why did you serve fermented beans and rice? When you're all having catered meals? Well, fermented beans and rice are what poor people eat. What? Are you mocking Daniel and his mother? Amanda's face twisted in disgust. Her mother didn't even try to hide her contempt as she responded plainly. It's just the truth. I have no intention of becoming family with poor people. That's right. So you should give up on marrying him, Kevin added firmly. But Amanda didn't back down an inch. Why? I can marry whoever I want. Enough. I'll find someone suitable for you. Just do as I say. Kevin slammed the table with a loud thud. The force startled me, and I flinched. But Amanda didn't even blink. She stared straight at him and replied, So I was right. What are you talking about? I heard it from one of our relatives. Was she referring to the story about being taken in for the insurance money? I glanced at her, but she seemed unaware of my concern. You were trying to use me, weren't you? What? What are you talking about? Be quiet. I know everything. Tears welled up in Amanda's eyes as she began to speak. When she had visited my home recently, she had opened up to me about her adoptive parents. But it seemed there was even more to the story. Her adoptive parents, Kevin and his wife, had taken her in for the money. Up to that point, Amanda's story was largely accurate, but the real problem came after that. As Amanda grew older, Kevin began to plot something. He intended to use her for their own benefit. In short, he planned to marry her off into a wealthy family. Of course, to make that happen, she had to be well educated. She also had to have a refined personality. So her adoptive parents spared no expense in raising her. That's why she always got birthday gifts and was sent to junior college. And the truth is, Amanda turned out to be a truly wonderful young woman. All that was left was to find the right marriage partner, then everything would fall into place. At least, that's what Kevin had assumed. But Amanda had gone and chosen a partner on her own. That's why even if Daniel weren't from a single-mother household, you still would have opposed our marriage, wouldn't you? No, I didn't mean that. Kevin began scratching his head nervously. Clearly, she had hit the mark. What about you, Mom? Do you have anything to say? Well, I mean, she glanced at Kevin for help, but he wasn't in any shape to respond. His expression was tense, like he was desperately trying to come up with an excuse. It's bad enough to oppose the marriage, but to insult them and call them poor is just disgusting. Amanda's voice rang out, but her parents had nothing to say. Amanda, calm down a bit. Yes, you're right. Soothed by his words, Amanda finally sat down. Actually, ever since they opposed our marriage, there's something I've been thinking about. Something you've been thinking about? Yes. I'm planning to dissolve my legal relationship with them. Amanda placed her phone on the table with a soft tap. Displayed on the screen were instructions on how to annul an adoption. For context, an annulment refers to the legal process of dissolving an adoptive relationship. In most cases, submitting an annulment form is enough to legally end the adoption. While it's extremely difficult to sever ties between biological parents and children, with adoption, this alone is sufficient. In Amanda's case, Kevin and his wife would still be her uncle and aunt, but no longer her legal parents. She would lose her rights to inheritance, but also be free from the burdens of a forced parent-child bond. And in cases like this, where they oppose her marriage, that would no longer be an issue. Legally speaking, as an adult, Amanda doesn't need parental consent to marry. But the fact that she had still tried to convince them first was a testament to her good heart. I'm an adult now. You're not going to oppose the annulment, are you? Wait. You can't just say something like that out of nowhere. Kevin was visibly flustered. His wife looked equally shaken. Let's all calm down and talk this through, okay? Why should I? I don't want to be part of a family that looks down on people. Amanda said it firmly, and neither of them had anything to say. Or would it be a problem if I left? I mean, it'd be tough without my money, wouldn't it? What are you saying? I can support this family on my own. Oh. And what about your wife's little luxuries? Can you cover all that? I doubt it. I found out later that even after getting a full-time job, Amanda had continued to send money to her adoptive parents. Daniel and her friends had always heard Amanda say she gave money to her adoptive parents out of gratitude for raising her. But in reality, she had been pressured into it because her adoptive mother had begged her, and Amanda had given in. The reason was simple. It was her adoptive mother's excessive spending. Kevin's income wasn't enough to cover their lifestyle, so they had started relying on Amanda. That was also part of the reason why they had tried so hard to marry her into a wealthy family. But if Amanda went through with the annulment, all their plans would collapse. At that moment, her adoptive mother suddenly changed her tone. I'm sorry, Amanda. Please, if you forgive me, don't talk about annulling the adoption. No. I've already made up my mind. I really am sorry. I'm begging you. Her adoptive mother dropped to her knees and bowed deeply. But Amanda didn't even look her way. That back and forth went on for a while. Then, suddenly, Kevin spoke. That's enough. Stop it. But, honey, better this than becoming family with some pauper. He shot a cold glare at me. I clenched my jaw and responded. You really haven't learned anything, have you? Learned? Why would I? He didn't even sound defensive, and it was as if he truly believed he had nothing to regret. Did he have some plan up his sleeve? Well, if he hadn't learned his lesson, then I had no problem taking further steps. I'm still willing to accept an apology. This is your last chance. An apology? I don't bow to poor people. So he was serious. But before I could respond, Amanda raised her voice. Then we're done. I'll proceed with the annulment through a lawyer. That's final. Do whatever you want. Kevin exploded, his face twisted in rage. Thanks for everything. Goodbye. With that, Amanda turned her back to him and walked out with firm steps. Daniel, go after her. I know. Before I even finished speaking, Daniel ran out after her. Once I saw him go, I turned to Kevin one last time. Are you sure about this? You're about to lose everything. Shut up. What could a pauper like you possibly do? Go ahead and try if you think you can. His sneering face made my blood boil. But there was nothing more to be gained here. And right now, I was more worried about Amanda. I gave a short bow and left the room. Then I made my way to the front entrance. Daniel and Amanda's shoes were gone. They must have gone outside. Muttering to myself, I hurried outside and looked around in front of the house. Daniel and Amanda were standing a short distance away. They seemed to be talking about something near a vending machine. I walked slowly toward them and gently called out, "Amanda, are you all right?" "Tracy." Amanda threw her arms around me. I held her tightly. "You did great. From here on, leave the rest to me." I gently patted her back, reassuring her. She gave a small nod. "Mom, are you sure you can handle all this?" "Of course. I've got connections." "Yeah. But you're just a taxi driver. I'll make sure they regret what they did. But first, we need to think about what to do with Amanda." Apparently, Amanda had already moved out and was living on her own. She had a place to go, but leaving her alone in this state was concerning. "Daniel, you're going to protect her. Got it?" "I know," he replied with an exasperated tone. "In that case," I continued, "then she'll stay with us for a while." "What? Amanda? Why not? You're getting married anyway, right?" When I said it firmly, Daniel nodded a few times. It looked like he had finally made up his mind. "All right then, let's go home. As a family." I wrapped my arm around Amanda's shoulders and began to walk. She leaned into me like a child. It felt as though she were my real daughter. That settled it. I had to do everything I could for her. I had made up my mind. The three of us returned to my small apartment. It was just a modest unit in an apartment building, and it was a little cramped for 3 people. Well, it may be small, but it's a happy home. "When we get married, we'll move out," Daniel murmured. "Oh. And am I allowed to live with you?" "If Amanda wants you to." I was so happy, I could have jumped for joy, but I kept it to myself. The sun set, and soon the new day began. Early in the morning, I got dressed and prepared for work. Well then, I'm off. With that, I left home and headed straight to the taxi stand. Every Monday, I had a regular passenger I always picked up. He was the one I had in mind from the beginning. After waiting a short while, a man came out of the house. As he approached, I opened the door. "Good morning, Mr. Mitchell." "Ah. Good morning. I'll be counting on you again today." The man was Mr. Mitchell, president of a precious metals sales company. He was the very same regular customer I had dropped off the day I took Kevin to the airport. Considering that Kevin had come out of the building that day, it was clear to me that Mr. Mitchell must be the president of the company where Kevin worked. That's why, though it might sound underhanded, I figured if I told Mr. Mitchell what happened, it might actually make Kevin reflect on his actions. Once the taxi was on the move, I decided to speak up in a serious tone. "There's something I'd like to talk to you about today." "Oh? You need advice about something?" "I suppose you could call it that." I went on to tell Mr. Mitchell everything that had happened the day before. Yes, even the part about the fermented beans and rice. At first, he listened with a skeptical look on his face, but as I continued, his expression began to change. "And that's what happened. If this man really works for your company." Just as I was finishing, I heard Mr. Mitchell grind his teeth. "So it was him." "Pardon? Do you know something?" "No, it's nothing. Actually, would you be willing to help me with something?" "Help?" I tilted my head, but agreed without hesitation. Soon, we arrived at the company. "Please come with me to the meeting room." All right." I followed him as instructed. I was led to the company's reception room. When I stepped inside, to my surprise, Kevin was there. The moment he saw me, his face twisted in shock. "Why are you here? Why do you think?" Yes, I had spoken to Mr. Mitchell about Kevin, but I never imagined things would escalate this far. "Don't tell me you ratted me out to Mr. Mitchell?" "Well, you could say that." I gave a vague reply. Just then, Mr. Mitchell sat down heavily on the sofa. "Kevin, there's something I want to ask you." "Ask?" "If it's about what that woman said, it's all lies, every bit of it." He claimed he had done nothing wrong, that I was lying just to frame him. Kevin tried to spin the narrative in whatever way suited him, but Mr. Mitchell wasn't buying any of it. "Spare me the excuses. Just answer my question." I'm telling you, I didn't do anything. I would never look down on someone. I mean, come on. No one asked you about that. What I want to know is, did you say poor people love fermented beans and rice, or not? Kevin looked puzzled by Mr. Mitchell's question. It must have caught him off guard, as he took a moment before denying it. I didn't say that. It's a complete lie. He even chuckled a little as he spoke. But Mr. Mitchell's expression didn't budge. He stood up quickly and walked out of the room. Moments later, he returned. He tossed a stack of papers onto the table in front of Kevin. Do you know what this is? This is. Kevin froze. I leaned slightly to peek at the papers on the table, and it looked like some kind of spreadsheet. This is what led me to meet her. A lead to meet her? His words made me pause and think. My encounter with Mr. Mitchell had been purely by chance. About a year ago, after finishing my shift, I was cleaning the inside of the car when I found something left behind in the back seat. It had slipped between the cushions, so no one had noticed it. It was a small envelope containing a USB flash drive. The envelope had a company name printed on it. It was a precious metals sales company, so I figured it might belong to a client. Either way, I thought if I returned it to the company, the owner would be found. So I brought it in as a lost item. As it happened, the person who received it was Mr. Mitchell himself. At that moment, I had only returned the lost item. I handed him my business card and left right away. A few days later, I received a call. Mr. Mitchell specifically requested me as his regular driver. Since then, I've trusted her. Wait, are you saying that lost item was? This is it. The contents were client data. The moment he said a client data, I felt my heart jump. Client data is normally under strict management. It's not unheard of for such data to be taken offsite for work. But if it were lost, there should have been a major incident. If it never became a public issue, then it likely wasn't taken out properly in the first place. In other words, the USB I found likely contained confidential data that someone had stolen. I've been looking for the person responsible all this time. But I could never find them. I see. But after hearing her story earlier, it all clicked. It was you. Kevin. Mr. Mitchell slammed his hand down hard on the table. Kevin flinched and looked away. My story made the connection for you? Yes. There was a strange label on the client file, something that stood out. Mr. Mitchell began explaining. The client data was split into multiple files. First, there was a file for executives from major corporations. Then, the data was categorized into presidents of small to mid-sized companies and ordinary individuals. That last file had been given a very specific and bizarre name. It read, "Poor fermented beans loving scum." Ah. I couldn't help but let out a sound. I immediately covered my mouth, but it was too late. Kind of hard to call that a coincidence, wouldn't you say? No, I mean, that is. Be honest. Lie to me, and you're fired on the spot. Mr. Mitchell raised his voice sharply. At that moment, Kevin cowered, ducking his head like he was shielding himself. And just like that, as if realizing he had no way out, he began confessing everything. Because of his wife's excessive spending, their finances were so tight it began to affect their daily life. And so, Kevin confessed that he had gone so far as to sell the customer data. He had sold the stolen data to someone he didn't know. But shortly after the sale, the buyer contacted him, claiming the data had been lost. They pressured him to provide it again, but he got scared and refused. Kevin explained that he was afraid if the data turned up, it might lead back to him. He thought if it was just a one-time incident, he could claim it wasn't him. So you did it all just to protect yourself. I'm so sorry. I swear it'll never happen again. Kevin fell to his knees in the middle of the meeting room and bowed deeply. It was hard not to feel some pity, but he had brought this on himself. Now he had to face the consequences. I've heard enough. You're fired. Please, Mr. Mitchell. The data's been returned. That doesn't matter. The moment you took it, it became a crime. Mr. Mitchell was absolutely right. Taking company data without permission can be considered theft. In some cases, it also violates the Uniform Trade Secrets Act. Either way, it's a criminal act. If the company filed charges, Kevin could very well be arrested. So Mr. Mitchell's anger was completely justified. In any case, you're finished. No severance, and we'll be filing a claim for damages. Understood?
Yeah.
Kevin slumped forward, utterly crushed. I hadn't expected things to go this far, but surely, this would be enough to make Kevin reflect. I quietly stood from my seat. Well, I think I'll take my leave now. Thank you. Sorry to trouble you. Not at all. Take care. I headed toward the exit of the meeting room, but just as I reached the door, Mr. Mitchell called out. Next Sunday, I've got a golf outing with one of our partners. I'm sorry, but I won't be available next Sunday. I have a wedding to attend. I told him politely that I already had a prior commitment. Mr. Mitchell nodded in understanding. I see. All right, I'll book someone else. Thanks again.
Goodbye.
Before stepping out, I cast one last glance at Kevin. He was still on the floor, crying like a child. It hadn't gone exactly as I'd planned, but I'd gotten my revenge. If this humbled him, maybe he'd finally apologize to Amanda. With that hope in my heart, I left Mr. Mitchell's company. Later, at home, I told Daniel and Amanda the whole story, wearing a proud smile. They were both a little shocked, but they praised me sincerely. I was in such a good mood. I rode that feeling all through the week. And then, Sunday arrived. I headed to the wedding venue at the appointed time. As I had mentioned to Mr. Mitchell, today was the day of the ceremony. Apparently, the bride and groom were heading off on their honeymoon right after the wedding. Nothing better than a joyful occasion. I murmured as I pulled into the parking lot of the wedding hall. But something felt off. At the entrance of the wedding venue, a crowd of people was in a frenzy. A police car had arrived, and the scene was full of shouting and commotion. As I slowly approached, I spotted a familiar face. It was Melissa, one of the venue staff. Melissa? What's going on here? Oh, Tracy. You're here already. Well, actually. Melissa spoke with an exasperated look on her face and began explaining. The incident had occurred about an hour before I arrived. A wedding ceremony for a young couple had been proceeding smoothly. The ceremony ended without issue, and the reception had just begun. That's when the chaos erupted. A man and a woman stormed into the reception hall, their arms full of chrysanthemums, flowers typically used at funerals in Japan. Break up already. Divorce. Divorce now, they shouted as they scattered the flowers across the venue. Of course, the venue staff and security rushed in to stop them. Let go of me. I lost my job because of them. They're the ones at fault. Arrest the bride and groom. It had apparently turned into quite a scene, and the man and woman causing the uproar were none other than Kevin and his wife. But once they were restrained, the two of them suddenly froze in realization. Who is this guy? And who's this woman? Yes, Kevin and his wife had completely mistaken this wedding for Daniel and Amanda's. How did such a ridiculous misunderstanding happen? The answer was simple. The day Kevin was fired by Mr. Mitchell, he had been eavesdropping on our conversation. He had overheard me mention the word a wedding, and immediately assumed that it was Daniel and Amanda's wedding. The rest was predictable. In his petty and bitter mind, Kevin blamed me for his firing. As a result, he, with a mind that could only come up with trivial ideas, tried to figure out how to get his revenge. To crash their wedding and ruin it. Let's destroy it. Make them call off the marriage. He and his wife hatched this absurd plan, which led to them storming into this completely unrelated wedding. I was honestly shocked. I guess stuff like this really does happen, Melissa said with a long sigh. Just then, the two of them were escorted out by police officers. Let go of me. I didn't do anything wrong. That's right. Let us go. They were still shouting indignantly. I quickly covered my face because I couldn't let them notice me. A few moments later, the police car drove off. The two of them were still yelling until the very end. I later heard that they were severely scolded by the police. What's worse, when they were being restrained, one of the venue staff was injured. As a result, they were arrested on charges including assault. Fortunately, the charges resulted in just a fine. But it was a harsh enough punishment for Kevin and his wife. because they were sued for a large amount of damages by the wedding venue and the bride and groom. On top of that, the two were also being sued for damages by Mr. Mitchell. After being fired, he was left with no money. They were really having a run of bad luck. Kevin and his wife quickly spiraled into bankruptcy. Desperate, they began thinking of one last person they could turn to, Amanda. Amanda, we were wrong. Can't we just forget about this annulment nonsense? You're kind, right? You wouldn't just abandon us, would you? Kevin and his wife tried every trick in the book to cling to Amanda, but her resolve was unshakable. She pushed their hands away and demanded they sign the annulment papers. With a lawyer present, there was nothing they could do to stop it. In the end, the annulment was finalized. Kevin and his wife were legally cut off. With no one left to rely on, they had no choice but to start working to survive. But Kevin's search for a new job wasn't easy. The wedding incident had become infamous around town. No company wanted to hire someone involved in such a disgraceful outburst. Eventually, Kevin had to settle for part-time work. He ended up at a fermented beans production factory, and now, even his wife works there with him. Every evening, they buy fermented beans with the employee discount and take them home. That has become their daily routine. Poor people's favorite, fermented beans and rice. That's what Kevin's wife once said, but I wonder how she feels about it now. If I ever get the chance, I'd like to ask. As for me, life hasn't changed much. The biggest difference is that Daniel and Amanda are now officially married. While preparing dinner, I glanced over at Daniel as he vacuumed. So? When are you two moving out? You're newlyweds, after all. Time to get your own place. I already suggested that. Daniel paused what he was doing and glanced over at Amanda. She was standing beside me, helping in the kitchen. I turned him down. I want to cook like this with Tracy. Her cheeks flushed slightly as she said it, and my heart melted. Well then, stay here as long as you like. I gently pulled Amanda into a hug, and she smiled and nodded.